The great chamber of the Galactic Council was the largest room ever built by living hands. Its walls stretched so high that clouds sometimes formed near the ceiling. 12 species sat in a circle, each on platforms designed for their unique bodies. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some had no solid form at all. But today, every eye and sensor was pointed at the small human delegation standing in the center. Admiral Kang, Sumu, stood perfectly still. He was a tall man with gray hair and a face that showed nothing. Behind him stood Captain Park Do-yoon and Lieutenant Yoon Hana. The captain was calm, his hands folded behind his back. The lieutenant was not calm. Her jaw was tight, and her eyes moved from alien to alien like she was counting enemies. The Valtteri ambassador rose from his seat. He was 8 feet tall with blue skin and 4 arms. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. 300 cycles ago, we created the Covenant of Civilized Warfare, he said. Every species in this council agreed to its terms. War would be fought with honor. War would be fought with rules. War would separate us from the beasts we once were. He pointed one long finger at the humans, and then they came. Murmurs spread through the chamber. The Drathi clicked their mandibles in agreement. The Orvine, massive creatures of living stone, rumbled with displeasure. Even the Macaulay, the oldest species in the galaxy, watched with their ancient, tired eyes. The Valtteri ambassador continued. In the Battle of Nexus 7, the humans committed 17 violations of the Covenant. 17. In a single engagement. He waved his hand and a holographic display appeared in the center of the room. It showed the battle from a Valtteri perspective. Ships moved in perfect formation, proud and organized. Then chaos. Human ships appeared from nowhere. Explosions came from unexpected angles. The Valtteri fleet fell apart like a building with no foundation. They hid their vessels in an asteroid field, the ambassador said. This is forbiddance. Warriors do not hide. Lieutenant Yoon made a small sound of disbelief. Captain Park placed a hand on her arm. They broadcast false distress signals to lure our rescue ships into traps. They pretended to surrender, then attacked when our guards were lowered. They placed explosive devices along our retreat paths. They played recordings of dying soldiers through our communication channels to break our spirits. The ambassador's voice grew louder with each accusation. They did not fight us. They hunted us. Like animals hunting prey. This is not war. This is butchery. Admiral Kang said nothing. His face remained empty. The Drathi representative spoke next. Her voice was high and clicking, translated by devices embedded in the chamber walls. We have also suffered from human tactics. In the contested zones, they refused direct engagement. They attacked our supply lines instead. Our warriors starved while human ships watched from safe distances. This is cowardice. The Orvine representative spoke in a voice like grinding rocks. They used the environment as a weapon. In our conflict, they led our fleet into a radiation belt. Many of our ships were damaged. Many crews fell ill. The humans call this strategy. We call it dishonor. One by one, species added their complaints. The humans had broken every rule. They had refused to fight fairly. They had used tricks and traps and lies. They had won battles they should have lost, and they had done it by abandoning everything the Covenant stood for. Through it all, Admiral Kang remained silent. Finally, the council speaker, a being of pure energy contained in a crystal shell, addressed the humans directly. You have heard the accusations. The council demands a response. How do you answer these charges? Admiral Kang stepped forward. His boots made no sound on the polished floor. I request 1 cycle to prepare Earth's defense, he said. His voice was quiet but carried perfectly in the chamber's design. The Valtteri ambassador laughed. 1 cycle? You need time to invent lies? I need time to gather evidence, Kang replied. Surely the Covenant allows the accused to defend themselves properly. The council speaker pulsed with light. This is reasonable. One cycle is granted. This tribunal will reconvene tomorrow. As the species began to leave their platforms, the Velthari ambassador walked toward the human delegation. He towered over Admiral Kang, looking down with open contempt. There is no defense for what you have done, he said. Your species is young. Perhaps you do not understand. The Covenant exists to preserve civilization. Without rules, we are no better than the savage things that crawl in the dark spaces between stars. Admiral Kang looked up at him. For the first time, something flickered in his eyes. It might have been amusement. I understand perfectly, he said. Your Covenant is a beautiful idea. Rules that make war clean, honorable, almost pleasant. He paused. But you made one mistake. And what is that? You wrote rules for how you want war to be, not for how war actually is. The ambassador's blue skin darkened with anger. He turned and walked away without another word. Outside the chamber, the human delegation moved through corridors of crystal and light. Alien species stepped aside as they passed. Some watched with curiosity, others with fear. A few with hatred. Lieutenant Yoon finally spoke. Sir, what's our defense? They have recordings of everything we did. We can't deny it. We won't deny it, Admiral Kang said. Captain Park nodded slowly. Then what will we tell them? They reached a viewing window. Beyond the glass, the galaxy stretched in endless waves of light. Billions of stars. Trillions of worlds. And somewhere out there, a small blue planet that had only joined the galactic community 20 years ago. Admiral Kang looked at that galaxy for a long moment. We'll tell them the truth, he said. About what we are. About what we've survived. About why we fight the way we fight. Will they understand? Yoon asked. Kang's reflection in the glass showed the faintest hint of a smile. No, he admitted. But they'll learn. One way or another, they'll learn. He turned from the window and walked toward their quarters. Tomorrow, he would face 12 species who thought they understood war. Tomorrow, he would show them how little they knew, and somewhere deep in his chest, in a place he rarely acknowledged, he felt something that might have been pity for them. 3 months before the tribunal, Captain Park Do-yeon stood on the bridge of the battleship Indomitable. Through the viewport, he could see the Velthari Armada. 400 ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns. Their formations were beautiful, like deadly flowers blooming in the darkness of space. Earth's 7th fleet had 112 ships. Lieutenant Yoon Hana finished her count and looked at her captain. They outnumber us nearly 4-1, sir. Park nodded slowly. He had known this moment would come. Every human commander who served in the outer territories knew. The older species did not like sharing the galaxy with newcomers, especially newcomers who did not follow their rules. Show me the Covenant requirements again, Park said. Yoon pulled up the document on the main display. The rules filled screen after screen. Park had read them many times, but today he needed to understand them completely. Rule 7. All vessels must be visible to enemy sensors before engagement begins. Rule 12. Retreat is permitted only when 70% of combat capability is lost. Rule 23. Communication channels must remain open and honest. False information is forbidden. Rule 31. Environmental hazards may not be used as weapons. Rule 44. Supply lines are protected zones. Attacking them is forbidden. There were hundreds more, each one designed to make war predictable, clean. Honorable Park turned to his tactical officer. Lieutenant, what happens if we follow these rules? Yoon ran the calculations. Her face grew pale as the numbers appeared. "We lose," she said quietly. "Completely. Their fleet formation is designed for direct engagement. If we face them openly, they'll surround us in minutes. Estimated survival time, 40 minutes. Estimated casualties, total. And the colony?" Yoon's voice became even quieter. "The Nexus 7 colony has 3.2 million civilians, sir. If our fleet falls, they have no protection." Park stared at the enemy fleet. The Valkyrie had evolved as apex predators on their world. They had never been prey. They had never hidden in caves while something bigger hunted them. They had never known true desperation. Humans had. "Lieutenant," Park said, "tell me about the asteroid field to our starboard." Yoon checked her data. Dense, metallic composition. Difficult to navigate, but possible for skilled pilots. Sensors would have trouble tracking ships inside. And the radiation belt near the enemy's rear flank? Dangerous. Long exposure would damage hull integrity. But short-term passage is survivable. Park was quiet for a long moment. Around him, his bridge crew waited. They knew their captain was thinking. They knew to give him space. Finally, Park spoke. "Have any of you studied Earth history?" The question surprised them. Lieutenant Yoon answered first. "Basic education, sir. The wars. The disasters. Then you know about the Trojan horse, about guerrilla warfare, about Sun Tzu and his writings on deception." Park turned to face his crew. "Our ancestors learned something that these alien species never had to learn. When you're weaker than your enemy, you don't fight their way. You change the rules of the fight itself." A young ensign spoke up nervously. "But sir, the Covenant specifically forbids. The Covenant was written by species who have never faced extinction," Park said. His voice was calm but carried absolute certainty. "They fight for territory, for resources, for pride. But they have never fought for survival. They don't know what that means." He turned back to the viewport. "I do. My grandmother survived a war where her entire city was destroyed. My grandfather walked through nuclear wastelands. Humans have been fighting for survival since we crawled out of caves. And we are very, very good at it." Lieutenant Yoon understood. She began working at her console, creating new tactical plans that ignored every rule in the Covenant. "All ships will power down weapons and visible systems," Park ordered. "We move into the asteroid field. Silent running. The Valkyrie will think we're cowards. They'll think we're hiding because we're afraid." "Aren't we hiding, sir?" the young ensign asked. Park almost smiled. "No, we're hunting." The battle began 2 hours later. The Valkyrie, confident in their superior numbers, moved toward the asteroid field in perfect formation. Their commander broadcast a message demanding that the humans emerge and fight with honor. Instead, they found traps. The first wave of Valkyrie ships entered the asteroid field and discovered mines attached to floating debris. Explosions ripped through their formation. Before they could regroup, human ships appeared from impossible angles, fired concentrated volleys, and disappeared back into the rocks. The Valkyrie commander ordered a full assault. His ships scattered to pursue the humans. This was exactly what Park wanted. In the chaos, human ships broadcast false distress signals. Valkyrie rescue vessels rushed to save what they thought were survivors. They found more mines. The radiation belt became a weapon. Human pilots led pursuing ships into the dangerous zone, then escaped through routes they had already calculated. Valkyrie ships, following blindly, suffered damage to their systems. And through it all, human communications officers played recordings on Valkyrie frequencies. The sounds of battle, the sounds of dying, the sounds of defeat. The Valkyrie crews, raised on stories of glorious combat, found their spirits breaking as they heard their own people screaming. In 3 hours, The battle was over. The Valkyrie flagship, its engines crippled and its crew demoralized, transmitted surrender. Park accepted with grace. He treated the prisoners with respect. He provided medical care to the wounded. But as the Valkyrie commander was escorted to a holding cell, he looked at Park with absolute disgust. "You fight like prey animals," he said. "You have no honor." Captain Park considered the accusation. Behind him, his crew was alive. Around them, human ships were damaged but intact. Far away, 3.2 million civilians were safe. "You're right," Park said simply. "We don't fight for honor. We fight to survive. And today, we survived." He walked away, leaving the Valkyrie commander to consider something his species had never truly faced: the terrifying creativity of a species that had learned to endure. The tribunal chamber was even more crowded on the second day. Word had spread through the station that the humans would defend themselves. Species who had no stake in the matter came to watch. They filled observation platforms and floating galleries. They wanted to see how these strange newcomers would explain their crimes. Admiral Kang Sunwoo walked to the center of the chamber alone. He had ordered Captain Park and Lieutenant Yoon to remain at the entrance. This was his moment. His responsibility to the Valkyrie ambassador began immediately. He did not wait for permission from the council speaker. His anger had been building all night. "We have reviewed the evidence again," he announced. "The humans do not dispute the facts. They admit to every violation. Hiding their ships, using false signals, turning the environment into a weapon, breaking the spirits of our warriors through psychological manipulation." He looked at Kang with contempt. "There is nothing to discuss. They are guilty. The only question is their punishment." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Drathi clicked their approval. The Orvine rumbled in support. The council speaker pulsed with light. "Admiral Kang, you may present Earth's defense." Kang stood perfectly still for a moment. Then he spoke. "I have a question first," he said. "If the council permits." The speaker hesitated, then agreed. "Ask your question." Kang turned to face the Valkyrie ambassador directly. "Why are these tactics forbidden?" The ambassador seemed confused by such a simple question. "Because they are dishonorable. Any child knows this. But why are they dishonorable?" Kang pressed. "What makes hiding dishonorable? What makes deception wrong? What makes using your environment to survive against stronger enemies somehow shameful?" The ambassador's forearms spread wide in a gesture of frustration. "Because war is a test, a measurement of true strength. When two species fight, the stronger should win. This is natural. This is proper. Tricks and traps are the tools of the weak. They corrupt the purity of combat." "I see," Kang said. "So the purpose of your covenant is to ensure that the strong defeat the weak." "Yes, as nature intended." Kang nodded slowly. "Then I understand your confusion. Because humans do not share this belief." He paused. "We believe the purpose of war is to survive. Nothing more. Nothing less." He turned to address the entire council. "Your covenant was written by apex predators. Every species in this room evolved at the top of their food chains. You were the hunters, never the hunted. You have never known what it means to be prey." The chamber grew quiet. Something in Kang's voice had changed. It was no longer the voice of a diplomat. It was something older, something harder. "Humans were not apex predators," he continued. "We had no claws, no scales, no armor. We could not fly. We could not breathe underwater. We were small and soft and weak. Every day of our evolution, something was trying to eat us." He began walking slowly around the chamber, making eye contact with each species in turn. "Do you know how we survived? We hid. We ran. We built traps. We used the land itself as a weapon. We learned to work together against stronger enemies. We learned to deceive, to misdirect, to make the predator think we were somewhere we were not. His voice grew stronger. These are not the tactics of cowards. These are the tactics of survivors. The Velthari ambassador tried to interrupt, but Kang continued without stopping. And then we began fighting each other. For thousands of years, humans made war on humans. We developed weapons that could destroy cities in seconds. We created poisons that could kill entire nations. We stood at the edge of our own extinction not once, but many times. He stopped in the center of the chamber. I am not proud of our history. Much of it is terrible. But it taught us something that you have never had to learn. When you fight for survival, there are no rules. There is only winning or dying. Honor is a luxury for species that can afford to lose. He turned to face the Velthari ambassador directly. Your soldiers fought for glory. Mine fought for their families. Your fleet accepted defeat with dignity. My fleet would have fought until every ship was destroyed, because surrender meant the death of 3 million civilians. He paused. We do not value honor more than our children's lives. If that makes us animals in your eyes, so be it. The ambassador's blue skin had darkened with anger. This is not a defense. This is a confession. You admit you do not respect the covenant. I admit we do not understand it, Kang replied. We read your rules and saw a species that has never truly been desperate. You forbid attacking supply lines because you have never starved. You forbid psychological warfare because your spirits have never been broken. You forbid environmental weapons because you have never been so outnumbered that nature was your only ally. He reached into his uniform and pulled out a small device. When he activated it, a holographic display appeared showing a planet. A small blue marble in the darkness. This is Earth, he said. Our home. It has experienced 5 mass extinction events. Ice ages that covered continents. Asteroids that killed most life. Volcanic eruptions that blacked out the sun for years. Our planet has tried to kill us many times. He smiled faintly. We are still here. The Macaulay representative, who had said nothing in either session, finally spoke. Her voice was ancient and tired, like wind through dead leaves. You speak of survival, she said. But survival without principles becomes savagery. Where is the line? Kang considered this carefully. The line is the innocent, he said. We do not attack civilians. We do not harm prisoners. We do not destroy those who cannot fight back. These are our principles. But between warriors who have chosen combat, he shook his head. We will do whatever is necessary to bring our people home alive. He looked around the chamber one final time. You accuse us of violating rules. But your rules were designed to protect the strong. We have no interest in such protection. He straightened his shoulders. We are not predators. We are survivors. And we will not apologize for surviving. The chamber was completely silent. Then Admiral Kang smiled. It was the first real emotion he had shown in 2 days. Now, he said, let me show you what would have happened if we had followed your rules. Admiral Kang activated his display device. The holographic image of Earth disappeared and was replaced by a recreation of the Nexus 7 system. Stars appeared, then planets, then the asteroid field where the battle had taken place. Finally, 2 fleets materialized, the Velthari Armada in their perfect formations, and Earth's 7th fleet in a smaller, tighter group. This simulation was created by our best military analysts, Kang explained. It shows what would have happened if Earth had followed the Covenant completely. Every rule, every requirement. He pressed the control, and the simulation began. The Earth fleet moved out of the asteroid field. They formed into standard combat lines, visible to all sensors, exactly as the Covenant demanded. The ships were beautiful in their arrangement, but they looked terribly small compared to the Velthari numbers. "Our fleet is outnumbered nearly 4-1, Kang narrated. "The Covenant forbids hiding. It forbids retreat until 70% of combat capability is lost. It forbids using the asteroid field for cover." In the simulation, the Velthari Armada moved forward. Their formation was designed to surround smaller enemies. It was a tactic they had used successfully for centuries against other species who followed the same rules. "Watch carefully," Kang said. The first exchange of fire was devastating. Human ships, exposed in open space, faced weapons from multiple angles. Their shields failed quickly. Within minutes, the outer ring of the Earth formation was destroyed. 50 minutes into the battle, Kang noted, "We have lost 40% of our fleet." The simulation continued. Human ships, forbidden from retreating, held their positions as the Velthari closed in. Explosions bloomed across the display. One by one, the blue markers representing Earth ships changed to gray. 30 minutes. 70% losses. Now the Covenant allows retreat. But retreat to where? The surviving human ships tried to pull back, but the Velthari had surrounded them completely. There was no escape route. The final human ships were destroyed in a matter of minutes. 43 minutes, Kang said quietly. Total defeat. Every ship destroyed. Every crew member killed. He paused the simulation. But that is not the worst part. He zoomed the display out to show the entire Nexus 7 system. There, behind where the Earth fleet had been, was a planet. Cities were visible on its surface. Ships moved in its orbit. 3.2 million lives going about their daily business. The colony, Kang said. Families, children, workers, scientists, teachers. 3.2 million human beings who depended on that fleet for protection. He resumed the simulation. Without the fleet, the Velthari Armada approached the colony. In the scenario, they were not there to destroy. They wanted the planet's resources. But their occupation would not be gentle. Human history had taught what happened to conquered populations. Estimated casualties during occupation, 200,000 in the first year. From resistance, from reprisals, from the loss of critical supplies that the Velthari would claim for themselves. Kang turned off the display. The chamber was silent. Even the Velthari ambassador had no immediate response. Then Lieutenant Yoon Hana stepped forward. She had not been given permission to speak, but she walked toward the center anyway. Captain Park made no move to stop her. "May I address the council?" she asked. The council speaker pulsed. "This is irregular." "Please," Yoon said. "I have something personal to share." After a moment, the speaker agreed. Yoon turned to face the gathered species. Her voice was steady, but there was emotion beneath it. "My brother served on the Indomitable during the Battle of Nexus 7, she said. "He is a communications officer. He was responsible for some of those false distress signals you consider so dishonorable." The Velthari ambassador made a sound of disgust. Yoon ignored him. "He has a daughter. She is 4 years old. Her name is Yoon Minji. She has her father's eyes and her mother's smile. She likes to draw pictures of spaceships." She paused, letting the image settle in the minds of her alien audience. "If my brother had fought your way, the honorable way, he would be dead. Minji would grow up without a father. His wife would be a widow. His mother would have lost her son." Her voice grew harder. "You call our tactics dishonorable. You say we fight like prey animals. But I call them the reason my brother is alive. I call them the reason a little girl still has a father who reads her stories at night and tells her she can grow up to touch the stars." She looked directly at the Velthari ambassador. "Your honor is not worth my brother's life. Your traditions are not worth one human child growing up alone. If we must choose between your rules and our families, we will choose our families. Every single time. The ambassador tried to respond, but Yoon continued. And I think, if you are truly honest with yourselves, you would make the same choice. Any parent would. Any sibling would. Any species that truly loves its people would. She stepped back, her piece finished. The chamber remained silent for a long moment. Then the Macaulay representative spoke again. She was the oldest being in the room, from a species that had existed when most of these civilizations were still learning to use fire. I have lived for 12,000 of your years, she said slowly. I remember when my people were young, when we first reached the stars. We were curious and afraid and desperate to survive. She turned her ancient eyes toward the human delegation. Somewhere in those long millennia, we forgot what that felt like. The Covenant seemed wise because we had grown comfortable. We had forgotten what it meant to fight for our existence. She rose from her platform the first time she had moved in either session. These humans have reminded me. Perhaps we should thank them for that. The chamber erupted in noise. Species shouted at each other. The Velthari ambassador demanded order. The Drathi clicked in confusion. The Orvine rumbled with uncertain thoughts. Admiral Kang stood calmly in the center of the chaos. He had asked them to understand. He had shown them the truth. Now they would decide. But deep down, he already knew the outcome. The question was never whether they would accept humans. The question was whether they were ready to remember what they had forgotten about themselves. 1 week passed. 7 days of arguments, debates, and closed-door negotiations that echoed through the halls of the council station. Alliances shifted. Old friendships strained. Species that had agreed on everything for centuries found themselves on opposite sides. And through it all, the human delegation waited. Admiral Kang spent his days in his quarters, reading reports from Earth. The news coverage was intense. Some humans wanted to leave the Galactic Council entirely. Others wanted to apologize and accept whatever punishment was demanded. Most simply waited, as uncertain as their representatives. Captain Park Da-Yun trained with his crew. If the verdict went badly, they might need to fight their way out of the system. He did not expect this, but he prepared anyway. It was the human way. Lieutenant Yunhana wrote letters home. She told her brother what she had said about him in the tribunal. His response made her cry, though she would never admit it to anyone. Finally, the council called them back. The chamber was even more crowded than before. It seemed like every being on the station had found a way inside. They packed the galleries and observation platforms until there was no room to move. The council speaker began immediately. After much deliberation, the Galactic Council has reached a decision regarding the accusations against humanity. Admiral Kang stood at attention. Behind him, Park and Yoon did the same. On the charges of violating the covenant of civilized warfare during the Battle of Nexus 7, the speaker paused. The silence was complete. The council finds humanity not guilty. The chamber exploded with noise. Some species cheered. Others shouted in anger. The Velthari ambassador rose from his platform and stormed toward the exit, his forearms tight with fury. This is not over, he snarled as he passed the human delegation. My empire will remember this insult. He disappeared through the doors, followed by his advisors. But the speaker was not finished. The lights in the chamber dimmed, drawing attention back to the center. The council has more to announce, the speaker said. Please silence. Slowly, the noise faded. In light of the arguments presented, the council has voted to revise the covenant of civilized warfare. New clauses will be added to address circumstances not previously considered. A holographic document appeared in the air. Kang recognized legal language, carefully constructed phrases that would become law across hundreds of worlds. Clause 1. Proportional response exceptions. When a defending force is outnumbered by 3 to 1 or greater, standard formation requirements are suspended. Clause 2. Civilian protection priority. When non-combatant populations are in immediate danger, all tactical options are permitted to preserve innocent life. Clause 3. Survival necessity protocols. When the existence of a species or significant population is threatened, the Covenant acknowledges the right to employ any means of defense. The list continued. Each new clause was carefully worded, but the meaning was clear. The Council was not just forgiving humanity. They were accepting human ideas about warfare into their own laws. Admiral Kang let out a breath he had not realized he was holding. The Macaulay representative approached the human delegation. Up close, she was even more ancient than she appeared from a distance. Her body was like dried paper, fragile, but somehow eternal. "You have changed us," she said to Kang. "Not all will thank you for it. Some will hate you. The Velthri are proud, and their pride is wounded." "I know," Kang replied. "But we could not pretend to be something we are not." The old alien made a sound that might have been laughter. "No, I suppose you could not." She placed a thin hand on his arm. "Go home, Admiral. Tell your people that the galaxy has learned something new today, whether we wanted to or not." She walked away slowly, returning to her platform. 3 days later, the human delegation prepared to leave. Their ship waited in the station's docking bay, surrounded by curious aliens who watched from a distance. Captain Park Doing stood at the viewport of the observation deck. Below, supply ships moved in organized patterns. Trading vessels from dozens of species passed each other peacefully. Among them, he spotted a Drathi freighter traveling alongside an Earth cargo ship. They flew close enough that their crews could wave to each other. A young ensign approached him nervously. "Sir, may I ask you something?" Park nodded without turning around. "Do you think they'll ever truly accept us? The other species, I mean. Or will we always be outsiders?" Park watched the ships below. The Drathi and the Earth vessel parted ways, heading toward different jump points. But for a moment, they had traveled together. 20 years ago, we made first contact," Park said. "Every species out there thought we were primitives. Animals barely capable of reaching our own moon. They expected us to bow to their wisdom and follow their traditions without question." He finally turned to face the ensign. "Now they're rewriting laws that have stood for 3 centuries because a human asked them a question they couldn't answer. Is that acceptance?" He shrugged. "Maybe not yet, but it's respect. And respect is a start." The ensign considered this. "The Velthri won't forget. They'll want revenge." "Probably," Park admitted. "But they'll think twice before attacking us directly. They've seen how we fight. They know we don't surrender just because we're outnumbered." A faint smile crossed his face. "And maybe, eventually, they'll learn what we learned. That survival matters more than pride." Admiral Kang's voice came over the ship's communication system. "All personnel, prepare for departure. We're going home." Park took one last look at the galaxy beyond the viewport. So many stars. So many worlds. So many species who thought they understood war. They were all wrong. And slowly, they were beginning to realize it. The ship's engines hummed to life. Within minutes, they jumped into hyperspace, leaving the Council station behind in the quiet of the captain's ready room. Lieutenant Yoon found her commander staring at a star chart of Earth's territory. "We did it," she said. "We actually did it." Park shook his head. "We survived the first challenge. There will be others. The galaxy is learning that humans don't follow the old rules. Some will adapt. Some will resist. Our job is to make sure we're ready for both." He looked at her, and for the first time since the battle, his eyes showed something close to peace. "But today, we go home. We see our families. We hold our children. We remember why we fight. You nodded, thinking of her brother and his daughter. And tomorrow? Park turned back to his star chart. Out there, among all those lights, enemies were planning and allies were deciding. The galaxy would never be the same. Tomorrow, he said, we do what humans have always done. We survive. We adapt. We grow stronger. He straightened his uniform. And we never, ever stop fighting for the people we love. The ship sailed through the stars, carrying its crew toward home. Behind them, the galaxy watched and wondered what these strange creatures from a small blue planet would do next. They would not have to wait long to find out.